Hello! So, JustFlight have re-released the PA-28 family of aircraft that they've been selling since the early days of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Following recent updates, or following updates quite some time ago actually, the PA-28s have been slowly becoming more and more broken, and the physics modelling in them are becoming more and more broken as well. So it's quite timely that they've all been updated, and it just shows that JustFlight are looking after their customers and, you know, looking after their older product portfolio. So they've been updated. They still look amazing. If you look at the material modelling on these PA-28s, so this is the Warrior II we're looking at, which is like the baby of the family. It has fixed gear. The Arrows have retractable undercarriage, and there's several versions of the Arrow available. I've got them. I will be doing videos with them. I thought we'd start out with the most basic version of the Piper Cherokee family, the Warrior II. Okay, so if we go and jump inside the aircraft, you can see the modelling continues to be wonderful inside. It's almost photographic, and everything works. So yeah, it's quite stunning really. These are pretty much study level. Some of the instruments and the reactions to you doing things maybe aren't in line, you know, with... They're not quite as high fidelity as the likes of the Black Square aircraft that have now come out, but they're not bad at all. Okay, so if we go and have a look, there is a tablet inside in common with lots of other JustFlight aircraft. You get things like shortcuts to aircraft states, you get the maintenance of things like batteries and oil levels, you get various things you can turn on and off like the chocks and the tie downs. So if we go and look now, we're completely clear around the aircraft. Just trying to think. You can open and shut the doors obviously here. You can change the loadout of the aircraft quite significantly. So if we wanted to, we could switch out the GPS for either a dual 530-430 system, or just the 530, or just this old-fashioned GPS unit. We'll go with this one. I think this is quite nice. You also get the HSI here. You could swap out for an earlier version with just using the direction indicator, but we'll have the horizontal situation indicator because it's a bit nicer to look at. So yeah, you can see there's a lot in here, and if you go back to the main menu page, there's actually a lot more has been added to it than was here before. So we've now got SimBrief integration. So I haven't got a representative flight plan because we're not going to fly a big flight today. But, you know, I've got one here from Stansted up to Edinburgh from a previous flight, and you can see there's the operational flight plan. You can scroll through it and read it all. They pull out some of the important bits like the METAR for you and some summary data. So that's really nice as well. You've got a moving map. I think this was here before using OpenTopo Map, so it's a bit slow to draw, but, you know, works well enough. There's Navigraph charts, so if you've got Navigraph, if we go and put in Stansted, for example, we can pull up the charts for Stansted and go and look at them in the way you would expect with Navigraph. The aircraft menu was the one we saw. There's a notepad. There's also checklists. So it's worth pointing out, as well as these clickable checklists in the tablet, there are very good checklists within the simulator checklist system as well. And that all works nicely. What else have we got? There's a top of descent calculator, and there's some settings to do with like measurement units around the aircraft, things like that. You can switch the tablet off with a switch on the dashboard. Okay, so we're going to take it for a little bit of a fly, just to see how it goes really. So looking around the aircraft, if you've never seen these before, they are really, really nicely modelled. And you get some niceties as well, like if you change the loadout, you get different bags appearing in the back for different amounts of weight, which is quite cool. Okay, so we'll just remove the yoke by clicking on the stalk, which is how they usually work. We'll go move the mixture to rich, and we'll check the fuel tank we're using. We're using the left tank at the moment, so if we go and turn the battery on, we can see straight away there the needles have shot across. We've got full tanks, so we are going to be quite heavy. So I might actually go and change that. Let's go and cut the amount of fuel in the aeroplane down, because we don't need a lot of fuel for what we're going to do today. We're also going to remove the co-pilot weight. Okay. So how do we get this thing started? First thing we're going to do is turn on the anti-collision lights. So if we go and look outside, you should see the red light is flashing, and it is. which is great. Warns the people on the ground we're about to start the engine, so we should be able to crack the throttle open. Make sure we're on the parking brake, we are, and turn the magnetos round to start and hold it on. And the engine has burst into life, and you can see the oil pressures, fuel pressure has come up, or temperature isn't moving yet, but if we increase RPM, we can see RPM here to about 1500, let it sit there for a while. Hopefully these needles will move. Yeah, this is where I said it's not maybe as accurate as the black square aircraft in this regard, but it's kind of good enough to have fun with. I think that's the way to think of it. Okay, so there's a switch down the side of the co-pilot yoke to turn on the master switch for the avionics. We'll turn the alternator on as well. So let's go and turn on the distance measuring equipment. Let's go and turn on this old GPS unit. So this is the Garmin GPS 100. We will press enter on the self-test page. And it's acquiring satellites in much the same way that the newer Garmin's units do, but obviously not in a graphical format. It's just got an old LCD screen. Don't see those much anymore, do you? Liquid crystal display. So it's come up with the navigation marker there, so we can press nav twice and we get longitude, latitude at least, and our altitude above sea level, which is quite cool. So that reminds us to press B to calibrate the altimeter, and we are nearly ready to go. So come off the parking brake, you can see we've got a small amount of thrust at rest. That's because we still had the engine cracked open, sorry, the throttle was still cracked open. So we're going to move the flaps to first position. Let's have a look outside. The sound of this is incredible. Let's just check those flaps are moving. Yeah, they are. No, not. That's the switches on my controller then. I need to be careful of that. So if I go for 2 positions on my Airbus quadrant, that equates to the first stage of flap. Should we put the yoke back on so we can at least see it during the climb out? Okay, so we've got no wind today. I'm running with few clouds just so we don't get any untoward issues. We just want to see how the airplane works, to be honest. So full throttle. We're going to follow part of the traffic pattern out of Wycombe, and then we're going to go out 60 degrees out towards Bovingdon VOR. So we should be able to accelerate, and it's quite heavy on the nose still. So we've gone way past 60 knots even before we got off the ground. You can pull up at 50, but you need a lot of backstick by the look of it to make that possible. So we're just coming out past the boundary of the airfield, keeping an eye on the compass, so we will turn left to 230, continue our climb, coming up through 1,000 feet. This thing is quick. 1,100 feet. I'm just using pitch to control speed. So trying to keep it kind of 75 to 80 knots during the climb. Coming up for 1,500. If we look out sideways, we've got Freeth just coming past. Lane end was back over there, I think. I always get mixed up with which village is which. So this is the Hambledon Valley, and I've got quite a cool visual reference to show you along the way that a pilot explained to me in feedback to an earlier video where I was doing some of the tuition type videos. So if we turn now, we're climbing out above the pattern, by the way. We're at 2,000 feet already. We're going to continue climbing out to 2,500 feet at least. So I'm going to pull the flaps now. And what we're looking for on the ground down here, I'm going to have to sit up to see this, to explain it to you, is the beast. So if you look over here, you've got the head. Can I see it from here? I'm going to deviate slightly off of our plan so I can show you this. So there's the field. We would normally be coming across here. Here's the beast. So it looks a bit like an elephant. There's like the head, the legs, the body and the tail. So you will have noticed in the past, if you've watched it in my earlier videos, I used this field down here as a turning reference out of the left side, but you can just use this patch of trees as the pilots call it, the beast. So you turn over them and that makes you hit the 60-degree track. So we're going to do it now. So if we just jump back into the pilot's seat. So we've just gone a little bit higher than we wanted to. So I'm just dipping the nose gently. We've gone back to 75% on the throttle already. And we're coming round towards 60 degrees. So there's the field we would normally aim for. Obviously we're a lot higher than normal. But we're looking to trim out now to stay at 2,500 feet. So should we have a play with the autopilot while we're doing this now? Seeing as this has an autopilot, we may as well use it. So I'm just moving that heading bug to 60 degrees and we'll just pop the yoke off for a moment. You don't hear that in an airplane, do you? And put heading mode on the autopilot and let it follow the 60-degree track. So we've drifted a little bit since we looked down and we are losing a little bit of altitude, so it doesn't have any clever altitude tracking tricks in the altimeter in this thing. So we have to keep an eye on vertical speed ourselves. Obviously as the indicated airspeed, on a still day, as the indicated airspeed stabilises, so will the trim. Okay, let's go and have a look at the nav radios then. So if we switch this over to ident and say 11375, we should pick up the... There we go, we've just picked up the 11 miles to the Bovingdon VOR. So if we swing the HSI round, we should be going pretty much straight towards it. So if you follow the runway 24 traffic pattern out of Wycombe, you end up going straight towards Bovingdon. Okay, so let's try out then the nav mode on the autopilot and let's make sure this switch is on nav here. So this will obviously either follow the GPS track or the nav track. So we've got nav 1 here. So we've got, although we have an HSI, is this actually working? Yes, it is, look. But the Omni bearing selector, interestingly, is not the same one. So you have independent Omni bearing selectors, but the needles are reacting. That's interesting. So that you could argue that's a bug. I guess they're probably damned if they do, damned if they don't, if they connect them or not. Is there any other VORs nearby that we could use on nav 2? There's the London one, 11360. Should we tune it in on nav 2 just so we can see it happen? 11360. And there we go. So we can spin this around. It's probably about 140, is it? 150? 140, 135 degrees to the nav 2. Very good. So we've got a little bit of cloud. So let's have a look at this airplane from outside. It looks amazing, doesn't it? So JustFlight really have done a number with these. They are really nice, and it's really nice to fly now as well. There were some real issues with ground handling before, or that must have appeared with an earlier update, and they seem to have fixed all of that. It felt very nice taxiing. It was kind of swaying around on the suspension. So we are 7 miles out from Bovingdon. So you can see that's happening on the map. As I say, I will be doing some videos with the other members of the Piper family. I just thought this one, I quite like this one. It's kind of old. I like old aeroplanes. Have we got any ADF beacons nearby? I'm not sure that we do, you know. Let's turn them on the map. So there's the one here, Henton 433.5. Should we try it? See if the ADF works. So if we turn this on, .433.5 we're looking for, aren't we? Interesting. Okay, I need to have a look at that to understand. I need to look at the pilot operating handbook to understand this. Obviously doesn't have the full range you would expect it to have. Interesting. .04. I wonder if it's going to do that. Sorry, that's the... There's no further tuning for it, is there? Unless I'm completely missing something. Anyway, we're only 2.5 miles out from Bovingdon. So let's concentrate on the things we do know. So we want to leave Bovingdon on the 117 degree radial to fly directly towards Elstree. So what we could do is put ourselves back on heading mode for the moment. Tune this to 117 degrees. So 90, 100, 110, 115, 117 degrees. And then wait for the line to come in. Actually, let's leave it on nav mode and see what it does. See if it will intercept on its own. That's quite a sharp intercept for it to achieve. So the needle's going to come in quickly. We're within 0.8 miles away. You would think it would have done it already if it was going to. I don't think it's going to be very clever. And we're going to be overhead now, so we'll have lost signal. Or we should have lost signal. Yeah, we've lost signal, look, just as we came over. So it's now going to overshoot, it's now attained signal, and it's going to carry on turning. Did it keep the autopilot on? Yes, it did. That's amazing. So obviously as we turn, that's going to influence the speed, and we're losing height. Obviously that's because the amount of lift was reduced as we banked, so it hasn't, obviously it's now trying to intercept the signal. It'd be interesting to see how it does it. It's probably going to fishtail around trying to reacquire. I'm amazed it's done it at all though. That's quite stunning really. Maybe more luck than judgment. Okay, so we're on our way out to Elstree. So we will drop down to 2,500 feet. Oh, sorry, to 1,500 feet. So let's just pull the throttle back to 50% and trim for 500 feet a minute or thereabouts. There we go. could put our pitot heat on. It's a warm day anyway, but a fuel pump is not going to make much difference while you're flying along. Put the landing lights on, I guess. Now we're getting closer to the airfield. Not sure how bright they are on this. You've got this forward lamp. The sound of this aircraft is fantastic. So we should see Elstree. This is obviously Elstree Studios. This is Harry Potter World, if anybody would like to go visit it one day. We've been there numerous times with the children. It's absolutely fantastic. So when they finished filming Harry Potter, they closed the studios off and made it into a tourist attraction. They are still an operating studio, but part of the studio complex is a museum filled with the real sets and the real props from the Harry Potter production. It really is quite something. You can see a row of houses, that's Privet Drive. Anyway. Yeah, you can see on the map there, look, Harry Potter Studio Tour, Leavesden. So I think it may be that this closest part is the studio tour, I can't remember, I think it might be. And then the rest of it is still the working studio. So we need to keep an eye on the altitude. I forgot we don't have altitude capture. So we've got quite low. So you can see the airfield ahead of us. So I'm going to come off the autopilot. So I've just disengaged it with the button on the yoke. And we're going to climb back away and circle the airfield and have a look at it. You can see London off in the distance. Various sites out there. Is that Wembley Stadium we can see? Yeah, there's Wembley over there. Some of the skyscrapers are starting to appear from the city. And this is Elstree. And it's stuttering really badly. It's trying to load scenery in, isn't it? So what we'll do is circle the airfield and just visually come in at the far end. I think it's uphill this way, I seem to remember. We did a group flight here about 2 years ago when Flight Simulator first came out. It was one of the best group flights we ever did. And we actually set off from Elstree. Let's sit down in the cockpit. Move our seat slightly, whoops, move our view I mean. I'm pretty sure you can get custom scenery for Elstree, payware scenery that will make it look, you know, exactly like the real place, but it's not too bad in the simulator at all, so it's pretty good. So far, this Piper Warrior has been really, really easy to fly. Like, deceptively easy to fly. So I've just dropped the flaps ready to land. And we're going to do a bit of a Spitfire approach today, but hopefully it will go okay. So we're down to 70 knots. I would use quite a lot of backstick. It's quite heavy on the nose. going for full flaps. Straighten a few up. The uphill really helps you. There we go, and we're down. Okay, so let's raise the flaps. Turn the landing lights off and taxi out onto the grass. Maybe avoid the ditch though and come back on the nice smooth grass. Hey, there's a Technam. What else have we got parked around? There's a Bulldog in Red Arrow's colours. Oh, I thought that was an ice cream van then. It's a running joke with the group flights, or a running joke that I perpetuate, that one day I'm going to make an add-on that puts ice cream vans in the airfields that play the tunes. That was great fun. So the Piper Warrior is absolutely fantastic, it has to be said, and JustFlight really have solved everything that was broken or wrong, and they've improved on them as well. So I'm really looking forward to having a go in the Archer now as well, to see how that's improved. So where should we park? I guess we need to go over next to the other aircraft, don't we? Okay, parking brake on. And we'll starve the fuel to the engine to make it stop. Turn the magnetos off. Turn off the collision lights. Turn off the pitot heat. Should have come off earlier really. And can we just turn this off by doing that? Looks like we can. And turn off the various things we were playing with along the way. I obviously need to look at the pilot operating handbook to figure out how to use the ADF properly. Other than that, just go and turn off the avionics master switch, turn the alternator off and the battery off, and I think we're there. So obviously then you can play games with doors, which some people seem to be fixated on. Do the doors work? And on this aircraft they do. So you can play games with. It does clipping on the internal view, so you can't slide through the doorway with the normal view controls, but you can at least see the aircraft. So there you go. The PA-28 Piper Warrior II in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Just updated by JustFlight earlier today. Hopefully you enjoyed that. It flies wonderfully. Some of the systems modelling it maybe isn't as accurate as you might hope, but it looks the part, and I think for a lot of people that's probably as much as they need. I think if you're probably training for the real one, you probably wouldn't rely on this. Let's face it. But it's, you know, it's good. It's good enough for most people to have fun with, and I think that's the important thing a lot of the time. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. See you again soon.